National Hispanic Cultural Center, where the world premiere of Shoes for the Santo Nino will take place on December 16th. I'm Andrea Fellows-Walters, the librettist for Shoes for the Santo Nino. And with me is Stephen Paulus, the composer, and Kurt Pavitt, our music associate from the Santa Fe Opera. Stephen, will you talk a little bit about the Santo Nino and New Mexico and your relationship with Peggy Pond Church and how all those things came together for you and looking at approaching this opera and writing this opera?
Sure. Some years ago, for Opera Theater St. Louis, I was commissioned to write a piece, and I chose to use the woman. The piece was called "The Woman at Ottawee Crossing," and based on the story, in part by Peggy Pond Church, the house at Ottawee Bridge, I think it's called. And so, when you called and suggested her as an opera subject with this story, I thought, well, I'm probably the person right for it, having been familiar already and loved the idea. I love the story because I think it has such a charm to it. And I thought, you know, what I'd like to do and what you accomplished with your words, and I resonated with those too, is to write something that presents some tonal things that we can remember, along with, you know, sometimes little instruments making dissonant things around the tonal things. This is why the piece begins, as pointed out, with the kids singing bells, but they're on a D. It's really, you know, here's your note, sing it. And when the orchestra can do all this stuff around you, and it sounds quite complicated, but it's not. And I think one of the things that we do as audience members is to listen associatively, and we like to hear things come back. And you know, some composers don't think that way these days, but I certainly do. And so the little Julianita prayer things, you know, is in the beginning, and it's a chance for her to shine in her role, and she does it as like a bookend at the very end, right before we end with a chorus.
So you want the audience to have this kind of, you want them to have they want to go on a journey and feel a sense of completion at the end of the opera.
My goal always is to write something that, as the first listener, I'm going to like. Because if I don't, why should anyone else? My hope is that, you know, people out there, secondly, I hope the performers are going to enjoy it. That doesn't mean writing lightweight music or anything. It means writing something that they might like at first, or kind of like, and then as they get to know it. I mean, I've often had performers say, you know, this is growing on me, which is good. To have the performers like it, they're going to do the best job possible. And thirdly, you know, the audience. And if the performers are convinced, then the audience will be convinced, and we got the triangle going. The creators, us, the performers who are recreating for us, and then also the audience who are just sitting there, innocent victims. They don't know what they're going to get. In this piece, which is only about 35 minutes long, I think, there are many recurrent things, textures and harmonies that come back, and so people, you don't have to have a PhD or even a BA in music theory and composition. You can just say, I like that part where the chimes come in, and that's good enough. I'm confident that we've created a piece that will have some staying power, but there's nothing like a premiere to actually put it to the test. I'm very excited about it. I'm grateful for the opportunity, I think, you know, to work with Brad Ellingbow, University of New Mexico, and you, of course, and then Santa Fe Opera. Yeah, Kathy is wonderful. So I think we've got a pretty good piece.
Shall we go back to the beginning and go on a little musical journey through Shoes?
Absolutely.
So where are we starting?
The very opening. Yes?
Right, which is, if you want to set it up, I'll tell you why I wrote it the way I did.
Well, we start with church bells. We wanted to give the children, who comprise a big part of the musical force in this opera, a really great place to start, a powerful place to start. So we start with church bells.
Opening in a square, and it's set with chords from the piano. And in the orchestra, I also added chimes, so we get almost like some real, you know, tubular bells. And it's sort of polytonal, different keys going on at the same time. But I thought the young voices need something secure to start with, so they have the same note for a few measures, just a D that goes bing, bong. So they're simulating the bells, and then we get bell-like sounds surrounding them, which are more complicated than what they're singing, but that's okay. We want the opera to get off to a good start.
All right, let's go for it.
Go back to the beautiful melody you were playing, perhaps?
Yes.
What we call the lullaby.
Page 14.
That Julianita, the young girl whose story this is, along with the Santo Nino, her mother sings this. Steve, you want want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah, she was just singing about the fact that of her 11 children, the youngest one, Julianita, is already becoming a grown girl, and she's sort of lamenting that. And it's a chance musically for the mother to actually sing something and put a little spotlight on her. Since she's in the opera, she needs to have something like this. It's one thing you're really conscious of, is that the story has to work. I have to work with your words and tell the story, but I also have to look for opportunities to let people shine musically, and this is the mother's chance to do that. We're going to play some of the music
Before it?
leading up with
Yes.
sounds of some of the smallest or youngest singers are masquerading as crickets and little animals.
So you had to write music for children as young as 5, is that right?
Yes.
And so this is
Music
one
they
of
could
the-
sing.
Cricket sounds are one of their big things.
They're big on crickets.
So what's happening here, Stephen?
Yeah, we should set this up a little bit. This seemed like an ideal spot, given your words, Andrea, to just create a little song. She's in the church, and she's going to be meeting the Santo Nino and presenting these shoes. It just seemed like a very touching moment that you've created, which I wanted to represent lyrically, because she sings presumably unaware that he's there listening to her. And it's one of those fine operatic moments any composer yearns for, where you just let someone sing and reach out and touch our hearts in some way that they can do with the magical chemistry of words and music wedded together. It's a very simple little song. The first time is Santo, she's a little timid. The second time, I mean, you can't make a whole big psychological deal about this, but the next time she's a little braver, Santo, and a little flourish, da-da-da-da-dee-da. She's very cautious and unadorned and straightforward half notes and whole notes in a 3/2 time. And gradually she's coming out of her little shell to say, hey, I've got this thing for you. And as the melody, as we'll see in a minute, as it unravels, she starts to ascend a whole octave and come down an octave, and it's sort of showing her oats in a wonderful melodic way, not a bravura way. It's certainly not a bravura.
It's chant-like in a way.
It is quite chant-like, which kind of like ties into the whole prayer. It is a prayer. It's a musical prayer, and it ties into church and bells in the beginning and all. Yeah.
And with the word Stephen, it is a prayer, and it's very. She starts off wondering if he's Santo Nino, are you waiting for me? And then she goes on that will he be joyful to receive this gift that she's made just for him. So as you were talking about the music, and that she starts out so timidly, I mean, just wondering if he's even there. And then is he listening to her, and then will he be joyful? And that she does gain this confidence that she's so bold to ask for something from the Santo Nino. But it's still very simple. She just wants him to like the shoes.
What I love about the words too, Andrea, is that they suggest, when she says, Santo Nino, are you waiting for me? It's a question. She's not sure. She's got a lot of doubt. But in the next sentence, she says, Santo Nino, I'm sure that you must already know of my plan. So in her own young naivete, she has kind of this tremendous faith.
Yes.
That he not only is aware of her, he knows what she's there for and all that. It's a very touching moment, I think. So.
And that comes up later with some of the other characters they encounter. That refrain of, "Oh, Santo Nino, you already know. You already know what's going on." So Julianita and the Santo Nino have met, and they're off on their adventure into what we call the treasures of the night.
Yeah, exactly.
Tesoros de noche.
So maybe we get an idea of the music. Huh? How
Great
bright,
little chorus
how bright
part.
the apples are on the ancient trees around the church, turning to gold and silver, Madre Luna, hanging in the sky,
I
etc.
love it because it's so active.
All right,
It's bright.
sprightly.
play both
Well,
parts.
what I like about this part too is it really showcases Peggy Ponchurch and her text as well. I mean, this is some of her wonderful language.
And you were wonderful to incorporate a mix of that.
Well, thank you. She is a good platform on which to stand.
This-
Why don't we talk a little bit about what the full orchestration is?
I love that.
Yeah, it's a chamber-sized orchestra. It uses a flute, clarinet, a guitar, and I wanted piano because of the basis to establish some rhythmic things and all that.
Right.
Plus also harp, which gives some of the reverie and the treasures of the night areas and stuff like that.
Madre Luna's World.
And then there's a percussion player, one percussion, and then there's a string trio, violin, viola, and cello. So it's very lean and quite spare, and it was made that way on purpose because we're accompanying young voices. You don't need a major symphonic orchestra to drown them out. You have to be very careful how you orchestrate for these things.
So how about a little bit of the rousing final chorus, Stephen? Would that be all right?
I think that's great. Yeah.
And just with the book ending of the bells and
Yeah, that'd
and
be a
maybe-
great idea. Just
From here, maybe?
sure.
So this really is very
so-
simple text. Milagro, estaremos listos, miracle, we will be ready.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Stephen. Thank you, Kurt.
Thank you, Andrea.
I hope that you will make time to join us for this world premiere opera on December 16th, 17th, and 18th at the National Hispanic Cultural Center, and then on January 6th and 7th at the Lindzick Center for Performing Arts in Santa Fe. All performances are free of charge.